Speaker, at the last budget, the Right Honourable Lady said that she would bring stability to the public finances. Stability to the public finances. This country was growing at the fastest rate in the G7 only about a year ago. And just as the OECD, the OBR have stated, growth has been halved in this year, cut in two as a consequence of the decisions and the choices.
Debt interest payments now exceed twice our entire defense budget. Let that sink in. While Rachel Reeves talks about responsible finances, her policies have created a situation where we're spending more servicing debt than protecting our nation. The Shadow Chancellor's response to the spring budget wasn't just criticism. It was a methodical dismantling of economic promises with factual evidence. I'll walk you through exactly how we went from 2% inflation to 4%, from job growth to rising unemployment, and from economic stability to market panic. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great. Thank you so much. Now, back to the video.
Inflation, which was down to 2%, bang on target on the very day of the last general election under a Conservative government. This is going to mean prices bearing down on households and on businesses right across the country because of her choices. We are now told this year we'll be running at twice the level as was forecast under ourselves in 2024.
When Rachel Reeves stood at the dispatch box promising economic stability, many took her at her word. But as the Shadow Chancellor pointed out in his devastating response, promises mean little when confronted with the harsh reality of economic data. What we're seeing isn't just a slight deviation from expectations. It's a fundamental collapse of economic credibility that should concern every British household. Let's be clear about what's happened here. Reeves inherited an economy that was performing remarkably well by international standards. The UK was growing faster than any other G7 nation. Inflation had been successfully tamed to the Bank of England's target rate, and businesses were cautiously optimistic about the future. It was, by any reasonable measure, a strong foundation upon which to build. Fast forward to today, and the picture couldn't be more different. The Office for Budget Responsibility, not opposition politicians but independent economic analysts, has delivered a verdict that should send shockwaves through Westminster.
Mr. Speaker, that unemployment will be rising this year and next year and the year after. And in fact, across the forecast period, it will not decline at all, spending later on in the forecast period. And she has, of course, told the OBR that these are the elements of spending restraint to which she will stick. Right Honourable Lady, Mr. Speaker, says, of course, that none of this is her fault. It is the war in Ukraine.
Everybody else.
It is President Trump.
Their analysis shows that UK economic growth has been slashed by half compared to previous forecasts. This isn't a minor adjustment or statistical anomaly. It represents a dramatic downgrading of our economic prospects under the current Chancellor's watch. Perhaps most alarming for everyday Britons is what's happening with inflation. Remember when it hit the coveted 2% target? That achievement has been completely squandered. The OBR now projects inflation will run at double that rate, 4%, throughout 2024. This isn't just a number on a spreadsheet. It means your money will lose value twice as quickly as it should. Your savings will erode faster, your mortgage payments will remain higher, and your weekly shop will continue to strain household budgets.
Mr. Speaker, that unemployment will be rising this year and next year and the year after. And in fact, across the forecast period, it will not decline at all. Right Honourable Lady, Mr. Speaker, says, of course, that none of this is her fault. It is the war in Ukraine.
Everybody else.
It is President Trump. Is that this is a consequence of her choices. She is the architect of her own misfortune.
The markets, which Reeves promised to reassure, are sending their own unmistakable message of no confidence. Despite all her talk of fiscal responsibility, government borrowing costs remain stubbornly elevated. Financial experts aren't buying what she's selling, and neither should the British public. These persistent high borrowing costs aren't just abstract figures. They translate directly into less money for public services and higher taxes for working people. But perhaps the most damning contradiction in Reeves's economic approach comes in her much-touted back-to-work agenda. How can a chancellor credibly claim to be getting Britain working again when the OBR forecasts rising unemployment not just this year, but next year and the year after as well? The shadow chancellor rightly exposed this fundamental disconnect. Throughout the entire forecast period, unemployment is projected to rise with no decline in sight, a devastating indictment of the government's economic management. The business community, whose confidence is essential for job creation and investment, has responded with unprecedented alarm. According to surveys from the Federation of Small Businesses, business confidence has plummeted to its lowest recorded level outside of the pandemic. When the very engines of our economy, the small business owners and entrepreneurs who create jobs and drive innovation, are this pessimistic about the future, we should all be concerned. Adding insult to injury, the shadow chancellor highlighted how Reeves has implemented welfare reforms without proper impact assessments. Changes so chaotic and poorly planned that even the OBR has struggled to model their effects accurately. This isn't just administrative incompetence, it's policy recklessness that directly affects the most vulnerable in our society. The economic story being told by the government simply doesn't match the economic reality being lived by the British people. When growth is halved, inflation doubled, unemployment rising, and business confidence collapsing, no amount of political spin can hide the truth. The shadow chancellor's response wasn't just political point scoring. It was a necessary correction to a misleading economic narrative. What's particularly troubling is the chancellor's apparent refusal to acknowledge these realities. When confronted with clear evidence of economic decline under her stewardship, she opts for deflection rather than reflection. The British public deserves better than this. They deserve honest acknowledgement of our economic challenges and a credible plan to address them. Let's be crystal clear. These aren't just routine economic challenges we're facing. They're crisis indicators. The OBR's latest analysis paints a troubling picture that transcends party politics. Debt interest payments are projected to increase drastically, with economic experts warning this could trigger a full-blown fiscal crisis if left unaddressed. When you're spending twice your defense budget just servicing debt, that's not an opinion. It's a fiscal emergency. This isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet. It's about a government attempting to paper over fundamental economic realities. Historical comparisons to the economic turmoil of the 1970s aren't just academic exercises. They're warning signs of potentially seismic policy shifts ahead. The shadow chancellor wasn't engaging in parliamentary theatrics. They were highlighting economic truths that will impact British families regardless of political affiliation. The sustainability of our current fiscal policy isn't a matter of debate. It's a ticking time bomb that demands immediate attention.